Did you know that elephants are afraid of ants? This is Dr. C. Dexter Wise III, and welcome to another edition of Wow, a word from the wise on Wednesday. I said, did you know that elephants are afraid of ants? Full disclosure, I'm not a student of zoology and don't know any more about animals than the average person, nor am I an expert in entomology or know anything particularly deep about insects. However, I was watching Rachel Maddow the other day, and she was showing how thousands of people across America were demonstrating against the Trump administration's immigration prison policy. You know, they're trying to get a bunch of immigrants and put them in warehouses all across the country. So people have been demonstrating all across the country and causing the administration to slow down and in some cases stop the program. Then, out of nowhere, I remembered something I had learned or I had been taught or I had heard. It is that elephants are afraid of ants. Elephants are afraid of ants. When the thought came to me, it sounded so wild and so crazy that I didn't think it could possibly be true. So I did what everybody does when they want to know if something is true. I turned to Google. I typed in Google the question, are elephants afraid of ants? And the first thing that came back was, yes, elephants are afraid of ants. This makes absolutely no logical sense. We're not talking about a wife who makes her husband come home from work in the middle of the day to kill a spider. We're talking about elephants being afraid of ants. How could that be? I'm sure that any ants with good sense are afraid of elephants, but how could elephants be afraid of ants? According to Google, by weight, a typical worker ant weighs about 3 milligrams. A male African elephant weighs about 6,000 kilograms. In other words, 6 million grams. It takes 2 billion ants to equal the mass of one single elephant. You have to put together 2 billion ants to equal the weight of one elephant, and yet elephants are afraid of ants. By length, a worker ant is about 5 millimeters long. An elephant stretches up to 6 meters or 6,000 millimeters from trunk to tail. You would need to line up 1,200 ants head to tail to match the length of one elephant. 1,200 ants. Elephants have tough skin, and they don't feel an ant riding on it. One elephant could kill 10,000 ants with a single step. So I repeat, why in the world would an elephant be afraid of ants? The fact of the matter is, elephants have reason to be afraid of ants. First of all, there are more ants in the world than elephants. Say that. There are more ants in the world than elephants. As large as elephants are in size, they are outnumbered by ants. Secondly, elephants should be afraid of ants because while one elephant weighs 6,000 kilograms and one ant only weighs 3 milligrams, if you add up the weight of all the ants in the world, listen to this, the total number of ants in the world would outweigh all the elephants in the world. So if you gathered up all the elephants in the world on every continent and put them on a scale, and then took all the ants in the world and put them on the scale, the ants would outweigh the elephants. In other words, when they get together, all the ants weigh more than all the elephants. Number 3, an ant can lift up to 50 times its own body weight. In contrast, an elephant can only lift roughly 25% of its body weight. This means that while ants are smaller, they are vastly superior in relative strength. Ants are stronger than elephants. That's hard to believe, but it's true. Ants are stronger than elephants. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, elephants are afraid of ants because while ants cannot get through their thick skin, ants can crawl inside the trunk of an elephant. According to Google, swarms of biting ants crawl inside the highly sensitive, nerve-rich interior of their trunks. And while an elephant's thicker outer skin hides is excellent protection, the inside of its trunk is its Achilles heel, making a mass attack of tiny insects incredibly painful. In other words, ants are small, but they can make an elephant's life miserable with simple irritation and agitation. Irritation and agitation. They can make elephants change the trees they eat from, change the places they graze, and all because the ants can make their life miserable if enough of them get together. The interesting thing is that while ants are certainly afraid of elephants and elephants are afraid of ants, I bet you that ants don't know that the elephants are afraid of them. The ants don't know that the elephants are afraid of them. They don't know the power they could have over the elephant if they all got together on purpose. They don't know how much they can disrupt the life of an elephant. They don't know how much the elephant fears their tiny little bodies. If you think about it, the GOP elephant has a tough skin of policy, law, and military might. The GOP elephant walks around big and bad. The GOP elephant marks its territory as if it owns the continent and the whole world. But the desperate moves the GOP elephant is making to neutralize black people's vote is a clear sign that they are terrified of ants. They are terrified of ants. Black ants, brown ants, and even white ants. The GOP elephant is doing everything it can right now to negate the power of ants because it knows that when ants realize how powerful they really are and how much they can disrupt the GOP system, they know, that is the ants, that is the elephants, they know that they are cooked. The message in this today is that yes, elephants are big. Yes, elephants are strong. Yes, elephants have tough hides. But if enough ants get in the trunks of the elephants and use nonviolent irritation as a strategy for liberation, nonviolent irritation as a strategy for liberation, the ants can cause the elephants to change their plans. Just like ants can ruin a picnic, ants can defeat a party and can force elephants to give them back their space. Ants can make elephants back up and graze somewhere else. Listen, this thing is far from being over if the ants decide to unite. I'm calling all ants to meet us at the elephant. This is Dr. C. Dexter Wise III. Feel free to follow me, leave a comment, and tell me what you think. Also, check out our church website at www.faithministries.church. And to learn more about my books, products, services, and the Wise School of Ministry, visit www.wiseworksonline.net. wiseworksonline.net. See you next week.